Are your parents still with us?
No.
No.
They're
Okay.
not, actually.
I'm sorry. I was going to ask you, what stage of your recovery, and I'll call it a recovery because it sounds like you recovered from this unhappiness in your life.
Yes.
And what stage were you at when you lost your parents? Were you able to heal the relationship with them?
Oh,
Was it
yeah.
never strained?
I have to tell you, for a couple of really wonderful things, and thank you for that question. It's a really wonderful question. But when I was in sessions with Bruce, first of all, I was very angry at my mother. Mm-hmm. I can remember being a teenager. Well, as teenagers, we all hate our parents anyway.
That's normal.
Washing dishes and crying and thinking about all the miserable things and why didn't she care about me more and why didn't she put me first and all these things. And when I did sessions with Bruce, I never discussed my mother. Mm-hmm. But I noticed after a few months that the anger was gone. Mm-hmm. And because the way that option works is when you learn to deal with one unhappiness, you're learning a different way to think about all your unhappiness.
Right.
And I just stopped blaming, I stopped needing for other people to be a certain way, and I totally forgave my mother. Mm-hmm. And I have to say, that was another thing that happened when I was writing the book. My mother died. So while I was able to bring the whole family together, I have two sisters, mm-hmm. and the myth in the family was because of Mom, we're all unhappy, right. and we're all damaged.
Right.
I actually called my mother one day, close to the time she was dying. I said, Mom, I just want you to know that we all know that you did the best that you could.
Right.
And that you were the best mother for us, and
right.
we all love you.
That's sweet.
And it was very healing for me, for my sisters, and it was wonderful for me to be able to tell her that.
And wonderful for her to hear it. I mean, because if there was friction in the family and blame going on and some unhappiness there, you don't want somebody to leave this earth feeling
right.
that way.
Right.
Yeah, so that's very, very nice.
And something that I bring out in the book also, there's a chapter in there about Annie realizing how much she loves her mother, even though her mother was so-called not a good mother.
Right.
And her thinking, well, then why do I love her so much?
Right.
If she was such a bad mother. Like, to trust your own, when love comes from you towards another person, what does that also say about that other person?
Right.
That, maybe you recognize something, even though they were unhappy and they might not have loved you the way that they're supposed to love you, your loving response to them is saying something about you and about them.
Right.
And mostly what it's saying is that you're happy with them.
Exactly. And loving your parent, bad parents get loved too, and are loved just as much by their children as
Absolutely,
good parents.
yes.
Kids don't discriminate against that. They have an instinct or a reflex to love their parents. You need love in your life. So I think that's pretty common, and I think that's why parental neglect or abuse or whatever you want to call it, or bad parenting, is so hurtful, because those lessons are coming from someone you love and trust, and is the most important figure in your life from the time you're born, at least until the time you're 15 or 16. And you start pairing off with friends. It's
such an amazing thing. I have a client who, he's over 50. And when we were getting down to the essential belief about why he was unhappy in his life today, mm-hmm. it was connected to his father. And he actually said, if I wasn't unhappy, I wouldn't be true to my father. It was almost as if I didn't love my father because I'm no longer agreeing with him that I'm a bad person.
Right.
And he's over 50 years old. He's been carrying this around with him. So, sometimes children, they align themselves with their parents' unhappiness to show them that they love them. And it can be difficult to unwind that until you realize that that's what's really going on.
Yeah, and there is a forgiveness that you have to take into account, that one, they're the victim of their circumstances too.
Absolutely.
You learned
yes.
the option method and learned to choose your happiness, but if they're not treating you right, if they're putting the wrong things in your head, perhaps the same thing was done with them.
Oh, that's so true.
Dysfunction is cyclical.
That's so true,
Yeah.
and it was true of my mother, for sure.
Yeah.
And by the way, I have to say, the mother in the book is not my mother.
Right.
But the grandmother was my grandmother.
Right.
And I felt okay to do that because she passed away. But,
Right.
But she used to really say things like that to me, that if it wasn't for you, your mother would be happy. And, why would anyone say that she wasn't a bad person, but like you say, something in her background or, you know, just kind of that she bought into.
It's also, I think, generational. That was a generation that was rather harsh.
Yes, that's true. That's true. It was the
know.
way.
Yeah, spare the rod, spoil the child. Children are to be seen and not heard. I imagine our parents are about the same age. And my mom was a loving, tender person at times and a very harsh person at times. And she thought that harshness was good because it was going to build character.
Yes.
So children don't come with instruction manuals, you know, and we learn as we get older that our parents did do the best they possibly could.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Who would you like to see read your book? People who are suffering the same way you suffered?
I'd like to see everybody read this
Right.
book, but I think that people who, you know, certainly children, and especially young girls, you know, growing up, because it really is about the relationship between a child and a mother. People who have people in their families who are very unhappy and dysfunctional, people who want to be happier,
Yeah.
I think could get a lot from this book.